Good evening, everybody, from the summit of Mount Washington. My name is Amy Cotter. I'm a meteorologist here at the Mount Washington Observatory, here today to talk a little bit about what we can expect weather-wise here at the higher summits of New Hampshire this upcoming weekend. But before we dive into that, I've got a image pulled up behind me. This is our 25th anniversary, or our 25th annual Seek the Peak fundraiser. So Seek the Peak is our largest annual fundraiser, and for our 25th anniversary this year, we are going big. There are so many ways to get involved in this fundraiser, and if you're interested, visit www.seekthepeak.org. Like I said, this is our organization's largest annual fundraiser, so all of your support goes directly towards our work in weather forecasting in the White Mountains and beyond. And so I have my friend here, Nimbus. Couldn't find the real one, so he will have to do for now. Nimbus also wants you to donate to Seek the Peak and support in whatever ways you can, as well as my shift's fundraising team. So my team up here is up here until Wednesday. We live and work up here together for a week at a time, and we are calling ourselves this year the Knights of Nimbus. We are his protectors, and we certainly enjoy doing that, and we love our jobs up here. We love being able to work together. So me and my shift mates, Carl, Ryan, and myself, certainly encourage you to get involved and Seek the Peak in whatever way you can. And of course, Nimbus does as well. But get excited, July 19th. It's a super fun day. We have an après hike expo down at Great Glen Trails. We'll have food, brews, and gear. So join us at Great Glen Trails on July 19th, and seek your peak any hike, any day, wherever you would like. But coming up a little closer in time, we have our weather for this weekend. So it will be an interesting weekend weather-wise, at least relative to the calmer spring weather we've been having the past few days. But before we dive into the forecast, I want to go over a little bit about what's going on the summit right now. So this is our current summit conditions page behind me here. This tells us a whole bunch of stuff about what's going on, what we're measuring on the summit right now. The first thing I'll point out is our wind speed. So our wind speed right now is right around 26 miles per hour, and that is relatively low. Our annual average wind speed is right around 35 miles per hour, so it's a pretty calm evening on the summit. We also have our temperature on the summit right now. Our temperature is right around 40 degrees Fahrenheit, so that is pretty warm for this time of year. However, we'll take a look at how those temperatures might change this weekend with a cold front we've got coming in. The last thing I'll point out on our current summit conditions page is our visibility. So our visibility right now says we have a visibility of 55 miles. And that was the visibility at the time of our last weather observation. But we can take a look at what it looks like right now on our live deck camera. Doesn't quite look like 55 miles, but we have been in and out of the clouds, which is why it looks like we're in the fog right now. So we have been kind of in and out of the clouds most of this afternoon under fairly cloudy skies with a little bit of rain earlier as our incoming system starts to move in and bring that precipitation that everybody's been talking about. But a good segue into talking about this upcoming weekend's weather. So we do have an incoming system, a low pressure system headed our way this weekend. It should bring significant precipitation. So this map behind me here is a surface map. So this is telling us what's going on at the surface. And this is good to get a general idea what kinds of pressure systems we're seeing, what kinds of weather fronts, and that green shading is that precipitation or that rainfall that we'll see this weekend. So let's step forward into tonight into tomorrow. So this is Saturday morning. We're looking at this low pressure system approaching from the west with this stationary front right here. So this stationary front will eventually begin to lift as a warm front And that has less of an effect on what we'll see this weekend as opposed to this trailing cold front that we'll want to keep our eye on as we move forward into the weekend. And you'll see that starts to lift as a warm front to the right of that L, that low pressure system. And that low pressure system starts to drag a cold front across our region. So one thing we're going to talk about is what kinds of or what types of precipitation we'll see up here at the higher summits with that drop in temperatures. But moving into Saturday night, you see that low pressure start to shift offshore. And then all the way into Sunday night, that low pressure is offshore. However, we still do have quite a bit of lingering precipitation. So let's take a look at what that looks like in terms of precipitation and when that intensity might be the heaviest. So starting tonight, Friday night, we've got some precipitation tracking into the region. This is a map of the entire United States, and again, that green shading is that precipitation. You'll even see some blue shading on this map right here, so particularly heavy areas of precipitation. You'll also see those high and low pressure systems. And as we move into overnight, you'll see that this map right here is having a tricky time picking up on that low pressure system, but it should pop up right there over upstate New York tonight into tomorrow morning as that low pressure passes over our region. And you'll see some areas of quite heavier precipitation. This is Saturday afternoon as that rain starts to taper off to rain showers here at the summit of Mount Washington. And then moving into Saturday night, you'll see some rain showers, some continued showers with that precipitation. And then lastly, our last day of the weekend, bringing it to a close with, of course, shockingly enough, more precipitation, some more rain showers, at least at lower elevations as we end out the weekend. And that low pressure hangs out off the Gulf of Maine. But let's zoom into New Hampshire right here. So we've got New Hampshire, we've got Vermont, and we can take a look at maybe when that precipitation is going to be the heaviest. All right, so moving into Friday night. And we've got some numbers on this screen here. And these numbers right here tell us expected precipitation amounts. And so this is precipitation in general, that water equivalent. It doesn't account for any sort of precipitation type difference. So in terms of snow, rain, it's just the water equivalent. So if we're looking here right at New Hampshire, we've got values right around ½ an inch overnight tonight. And these are these 12 hourly amounts, so I'm going to skip forward to the end of Saturday. And so Saturday, it looks like we'll see another about ½ an inch of water equivalent again. And then as we move into Saturday night, that rain's going to start to, or that precipitation is going to start to taper off in intensity. And Sunday will likely start with some precipitation tapering to showers. So a little bit more precipitation Saturday night. And as we move through to the end of Sunday, we've got a little bit more coming in from that system. But typical snowfall maps aren't really going to help us up here on the summit of Mount Washington. So when forecasting snowfall amounts, it's really important that we pay attention not just to temperature, but also to the vertical temperature profile of the atmosphere. So lower elevations are going to receive a whole bunch of rain and stay warm enough for that rain. However, up here on the summit, let's take a look at what temperatures look like. So you can see, if you can see these numbers right here, we've got some 6s, 7s, 8s. That's in Celsius. But you can see that lighter shading is warmer temperatures. So we've got some pretty warm temperatures going on. But then as we go into Saturday night, Saturday afternoon and Saturday night, you'll see those numbers start to drop, and you'll see these colder shades of colors moving in with that passing cold front. And so it looks like our area right here, we are at the tip of Coos County here on Mount Washington. It looks like we'll rise up below, or sorry, drop below freezing by sunrise on Sunday. So this is starting Sunday morning. So it doesn't look like we have a huge precipitation or transition period of a mix of precipitation. It looks like that transition will be pretty sharp over to snow. And then as we move into Sunday, we can take those water equivalent amounts and using a 10-to-1 snow ratio, we can kind of speculate as to what those snow totals are going to be. And we'll talk about that when we go over our values in the higher summits forecast. But most all precipitation that falls at the higher summits on Sunday will likely fall as snow. As we are saying, just a teeny bit above seasonal or below seasonal averages on Sunday. All right, and I do have to mention wind, or I don't have to, but it certainly is relevant with this system. So this map right here is showing us the northeastern United States. I zoomed out a little bit just so we can get an idea of what wind speeds are doing with that passing system. And this is moving into tonight. So you'll see those wind speeds pick up ahead of that low pressure system. And then as that low pressure system passes overhead tomorrow, you'll see those winds dampen quite a bit, at least relative to the speeds they're supposed to pick up to tonight. And then as the tail end of that low passes by, we're going to see some stronger winds on the tail end of that low later in the day on Sunday. But wind speeds ahead and behind that low look to be slightly elevated for this forecast period. And lastly, one thing I will point out, if I can figure out how to get this screen gone. Let's take a look at this. Perfect. The last thing I'm going to bring up in terms of maps is this map that shows us surface-based heat. So CAPE stands for Convective Available Potential Energy. And that convective available potential energy tells us a little bit about the instability of the atmosphere, that convective activity that brings thunderstorms. So this blue shading right here, this lighter blue shading, is higher levels of convective activity, or CAPE. And so you can see that we've got quite a bit of CAPE over New Hampshire right now. So that could bring about some convective activity earlier this evening. So there is the slight chance of thunderstorms this evening. And then as we move into tonight, that chance of thunderstorms seems to pretty much go away. But with that passing cold front, we're going to see a bit more instability be brought into the region tomorrow afternoon, which is what renews that chance of thunderstorms tomorrow afternoon. Well, let's take a look at what that looks like in terms of numbers for this weekend. So this weekend, we're going to see some winds picking up overnight to around 50 to 70 miles per hour, with gusts up to 80 miles per hour later tonight. Temperatures in the upper 30s, with some rain showers early and rain likely after midnight. Moving into Saturday, we'll see that continued rain, potentially heavy at times, with a slight chance of afternoon snow mixing in, at least at the higher summits, above 5,000 feet, with little snow accumulations around a trace to less than an inch. And we'll see those strong winds starting up the day, but then as that low pressure passes overhead, it'll dampen quite a bit and remain relatively low for Saturday night. And Saturday night, we'll see that brief transition period of a wintry mix of rain and snow, transitioning to just snow, likely by early Sunday morning. And those snow accumulations Saturday night of about 1 to 3 inches. And lastly, on Sunday, we'll likely see our precipitation up here at the higher summits transitioning to snow fairly quickly in the morning, and accumulating around 2 to 4 inches of snow later in the day. But certainly keep your eye on those accumulation amounts in future forecast updates, because there is a bit of model disagreement on that. And then lastly, the last thing I'll point out on here is our high temperatures. So our high temperatures on Sundays are in the upper 20s, just slightly below our seasonal average. So certainly if you're getting out to hike on this dreary weekend, come prepared for winter weather at the higher summits. That's all I have from the summit for you today, but I hope you enjoy your weekend, rain, snow, or whatever you're experiencing wherever you are, and I hope you find ways to enjoy it despite the precipitation in our forecast this weekend.